The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and thrilled
Hi.
to be here with my friend. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
You spilled water.
I spilled water all over the desk, and we decided to go anyway because we wanted to be on time. But it looks like my house right now. This is pretty much what my house looks like. I was away all last week, and I'm just catching up.
Okay.
And then spilling water, because that's how things go. And you, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Did you have a good Easter?
Yes, I did. How about you?
Yes, we did. We had a good Easter. So anyway, we've got big show for you today. I'm very excited about both of our guests because we have Vince Redmond, who's going to be with us in just a few minutes. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Right.
He's a regular here on the show, and we just love him. He was a behavior therapist for many years before he became a licensed marriage and family therapist, so he just super gets it.
Right.
And I appreciate that. And then we're going to have Dr. Gregory Firn on later on, and I've been waiting for this. We've had RoboKind on the show before, and I'm a big fan of RoboKind. For those of you who don't know, that's Milo, and he's got, there's more than Milo now. Now, the last time that we had somebody from RoboKind on, they were unveiling that there was a girl who was now coming onto the team, but now there are several other friends of Milo, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to get to meet them later on. And we're going to talk with Dr. Firn about what's going on in RoboKind and Milo's world and Milo in the classroom and all of that stuff. But first, we have some in the news, and because I'm all discombobulated, are we starting with the biomarker for early autism?
Yeah, biomarker for children with autism disorder took significantly longer to look away from a video when their names were called.
Yeah, and did you just go, here's the big duh, right? Because I was thrilled that the kids were responding at all.
Right.
Because a lot of times we see with kids on the autism spectrum, I know Jem got to the point where we would call his name and there would be no response. We thought he had gone deaf.
Right, that's what we thought too with Wyatt.
Right, and so this isn't a huge surprise for us, but a lot of times they do this research to see, is this really a thing?
Right.
Is this really a thing, or did Shannon and Nancy make it up?
Yeah.
It's what I feel like some of the research is. And, it behooves us to allow them to do this because it corroborates what we say, and then they come back and go, and it's not just your kids.
Right, it's not just you parents that are saying
It's actually a thing, and what they discovered is that it took significantly longer for the kids to stop orienting on a video and orient on something else.
Right.
And you and I were talking about this beforehand that, so what does this actually mean to us and for us that somebody found this study? Well, hopefully this will help us to realize, first of all, think about what this does for a teacher. So we can say to a teacher, studies have shown that it takes kids longer to respond, which means you got to be more patient.
Right.
It helps us as parents because we've been told by people on the autism spectrum, give me more time. My processing time is different than yours. We hear this from adults all the time. I don't know about you, but I would say to Jem, and then he would not respond. And 2 seconds later, I'd say, Jem. And then he wouldn't respond, and then I would go, Jem, and then I would go over and touch him. Well, we've heard from people on the autism spectrum, that's that's not helpful.
Right.
You know how when you're working on something on your computer and your computer is running slow and you hit the enter bar and it doesn't happen and you hit it again and nothing happens and you hit it again.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is slowing the computer down because it now
Yes.
has to process each one of those requests. And you're actually making it harder for the computer to respond. And we've heard from adults on the spectrum, it's the same way. So it corroborates for us what they have been telling us, which is ask and then count to 9.
Right.
And that's painful for me. I don't know about for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's painful because I'm literally like,
Answer.
when
right.
are you going to respond to me?
Exactly.
But that's my problem.
Right. Right.
That's not his problem. He's listening, it just takes him longer. Maybe it will help us to all be a little bit more patient and realize it's a thing.
Right.
It's not just what you and I invented.
Right.
And it's not, I mean, it can be an issue, but it's not necessarily wrong.
Right.
It just takes them longer.
It just shows us that, as Dr. Geraldine Dawson said, toddlers and infants who will go on to develop autism are paying attention to the world in a very different way.
Yes. And, it takes me longer to get out of a chair than it does you.
Right.
Does that make me wrong
No.
and you right? We allow for these things. You don't run out the door and go, you couldn't get out of the chair fast enough. You're patient and it takes me longer to get out of the chair. So maybe this will help us all to grow a patience bone. Maybe it will help for us to develop more methods of teaching that are address that issue and help those folks to be able to access the information in the way that they need to. We'll see. Then study number 2.
Also kind of a duh.
Yeah, kind of a big duh.
People's affinity for social cues is inherited, this study suggests.
Yeah. So, and basically they're finding that this is across the board, but it's not, it's that nature versus nurture thing. And that it's more genetic how you respond to social cues than nurture. Big, lengthy study, and you guys can read it if you want. We found it in Spectrum News, but showing that kids on the autism spectrum, the uptake from it is that kids on the autism spectrum don't respond as much to social cues as kids that are not on the autism spectrum.
Right.
That's the duh.
Yeah.
Right? But the good takeaway is that it's genetic, which again is a reminder to all of us that it is in no way our fault as parents that they aren't responding to social cues. It is in no way their fault. It's not necessarily wrong. They're programmed a little bit differently. This should help with insurance and continuing to address social skills, right? Because we're saying this is where they are.
Right.
But we do know that we can work on this and this can get better.
Yes.
It absolutely can get better. So there we go with that. And then our last news story of the day, I thought this was super cool. Sesame Street has...
Julia, the character.
Isn't she lovely?
She is.
I thoroughly enjoy her. And of course, we've had the actress on the show. We've had Julia herself on the show, and we've had the actress who portrays Julia on the show. We're big fans of Sesame Street and Julia. And I love that for Autism Awareness Month, they have drawn attention to the fact that not everybody loves to be hugged in the same way.
Right.
That some people, now, I love that they said, some people like to be hugged, and there are kids on the autism spectrum who want and need the pressure to be squeezed, but there are others who don't want to.
Right. And so they have taught a new hug. They call it, Julia calls them starfish hugs.
Yes, so you want to do a starfish hug?
You and the other person lift a hand, spread out your fingers.
There's our starfish hug.
Yeah.
What a great thing to do. And so they show that. But they also talk about, because some kids, that's too much pressure on the hands. So they've given a couple of other suggestions, but also said, invent your own way.
Right.
That, that there's the turtle one, which is you put you just go like this with fists. And I love that Howie Mandel, he doesn't want to touch hands.
Right.
So he fist pumps people.
Right.
And I think when we look at other societies, they don't all hug and shake hands the way that we do here in the United States. So I love the fact that we're allowing for differences and normalizing it with children, because children will be the ones that will teach all of us. I hated in life when, I don't know if you have this, where you know, an aunt comes over and they go, you know, give Auntie June a hug, and the kid doesn't want to, right? Even now, if I'm someplace and they'll, like, you know, we're at a fair or something, they'll say, give Shannon a hug, and I always say, only if they want to.
Right.
Like, you know, let's not force anybody to do that.
No.
And the way that they would like. And I will say this, Sesame Street encourages asking the child.
Yes, how they would like to be
How
touched.
would you like to be hugged?
Greeted,
How would you like to be greeted? And obviously that creates an issue if the child does not communicate in the way that we do. But remember that, you know, you can put up your hand, and then if the child wants to, they can. What I often do is I do this when I'm around children and I don't know. And some of them will slap, and some of them will do this, and some of them will take my hand. But, you know, that's just what I do.
Right.
All right. So big show. Vince Redmond up next.
Vince Redmond.
And Dr. Gregory Firn
Right, we'll
from
take a break
RoboKind.
and then we'll be back
in a
with
few
Vince.
minutes. Stick with us.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
And we're back.
We are
And
back.
as promised, we are joined by Vince Redmond, Director of Family Services for CARD.
And a fabulous licensed marriage and family
Right.
therapist with great experience in the field of autism, because he worked as a behavioral
Right.
therapist for many years before becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. So we always, I was just saying to a mom yesterday, I always feel better after I've talked to Vince, right? Vince just gets it on every level. So Vince, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Good morning.
Good morning. And so we had asked you to come on today to talk a little bit about burnout. And during the break, we were all sort of expressing 'cause burnout happens.
I have it. My son's been in therapy now for 10 years.
And I was
A
saying
little
during the break
over. I
that,
think it's been actually 12 years.
oh my gosh. And I was saying during the break that what I'm hearing from parents, it's very specific, different things that, you know, you were saying that some days you're like,
If I have to drive to the center one more time,
Right.
sometimes I feel like if I have to do this drive, I could do it by sleep.
right? And I've had other parents take issues with other parts of it, whether it's parent training or filling out the paperwork, that they're just like, really, do I have to fill this out again? And sometimes they do because of insurance purposes, but it's you had something very interesting to say to me about this about a month ago, Vince, and so that's why I wanted to talk about it, about your take on this and why it's happening and what can be done about it.
Well, lots of different things that come up, right? There's different reasons that people get out, and it's, the children get out.
Vince,
we're having problems with audio.
So I'm going to call you. So we're going to take a very short break, and I'm going to call you because you're getting every third word from you. So you guys stick with us. We're going to play a short break, and we're going to come back with Vince with audio that you can hear. Stick with us.
Can you say hello? Say hello.
AJ?
Stop crying.
AJ, let's eat. Can you eat, AJ? Let's eat, son. Have a fry. My understanding of autism was very limited.
On cars, windows, you name it. And so we went to the 13-month checkup, and I remember our pediatrician, he said, well, he probably has autism. There's nothing you can do about it. Come back in a year when he's 3.
Our initial understanding of what the ABA program was basically all we picked up from this clinic in San Antonio.
He didn't pick up any signs the entire 8 months that he was there. I think the difference came when we changed vendors.
We were very impressed with the way that CARD actually gathered data to be able to quantify the progress that he was making. They have a curriculum that they follow that's tailored to each child. They were identifying AJ's strengths and weaknesses.
We were finally starting to see real progress.
Good, AJ. Here's eggs.
The first thing CARD did for us was, I remember the first time AJ said, "Mommy, I want you." And that was the most wonderful thing ever. There's hope.
Yeah,
that's when I knew that there was hope. I never thought that AJ would be able to say that. It was like a gift from God. It was so fantastic.
With CARD, we got him enrolled in a private school.
And he was in a typical classroom. He would go from activity to activity. He could sit when he was supposed to sit. He could be around typical kids. The goal is for CARD to work themselves out of a job. It's for AJ to be in a mainstream classroom with no help, and he's functional and he's learning. We're really grateful to all of the therapists. AJ would not be where he is without them, and we will never be able to repay the part of themselves that they gave to him to make his life better and to make our lives better.
Welcome
We're back.
back.
Yeah. We had a little technical problem, but we think we've got that fixed now. So we're joined by Vince.
Little glitch, right?
We were
Slow.
talking about burnout from therapy, and
Yes.
my son's been in therapy for 12 years. That's a long time, and there are days when I feel like if I have to do this drive to the center one more time, I'm going to kill myself.
Well, and gosh, we hope not, right? But it can feel really bad, and I've been talking with parents a lot lately who are at that point. And as I was saying before, Vince had a really interesting take on that. So Vince, what do you want to say about it?
Well, now I'm nervous on what my take was. I don't remember.
Would you like me to refresh your memory?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind, at least when since we started talking about the topic, is being aware, is identifying that burnout is happening. And as I was explaining earlier before the audio cut out, there's a lot of different variables that play into burnout. It's not just the length of time, right? There's a lot of different things that developmentally go on differently, not only for the child, but for us as the parents as well. So the first thing is to be able to be aware of it and actually embrace it. Know that we're getting burned out. Know that we're kind of at the end or that we're really starting to struggle with this. And then being able to communicate that. Talk to the supervisor about that. Talk to your professionals about that. Let them know this is how you're feeling, because there's a lot of accommodations, a lot of things that we can do together to kind of change it up, mix it up again. Make sure that we get that fire again, we get that hope, we get that desire to continue treatment because we know that it's been successful. So the first thing is to identify it and to be able to communicate that to your professionals or to your supervisor.
Yeah, and honestly, Vince, that was really what you said to me, is that we need to help, when we hear this from parents, we need to help them to get them to a place where they're seeing where the progress is happening so that they get excited again, but to be very mindful and cognizant of the fact that burnout is a real thing.
And it's also a real thing with our kids. Let's talk about that. Kids that are burnt out from therapy.
Right. And the same thing, right? When we start seeing signs that the kids are getting burned out of therapy, especially when therapy's been so successful over time, us as the professionals need to look at how do we change the program design so that the children become reinforced again, they get more motivation. Maybe it's just the same routine that we're in and out, in and out, in and out. We need to do things differently. Maybe we need to change locations. Maybe we need to add more reinforcement. Maybe we just need to, to reprogram and do different lessons that will still shoot for the same goals, but we have to do it in a different way so that it's more exciting. It's a change. It's different. It's something that's actually motivating for them so that we can do that. I think sometimes especially kids that have been in the programs longer, right, these are discussions that we want to have with the supervisors before it becomes a big deal, right? Because it's going to happen. It's not if it's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen. For any child and family that's been in treatment for long periods of time, these are the types of things that we need to do to prevent it from, negatively affecting any type of treatment or any type of treatment progress. So dealing with it, talking about it, making accommodations, making modifications to the program, either direct program for the child or the routines and paperwork, like Shannon was saying, and the assessments and all those things. Like, do I need to do these again? There's lots of things that we can do together to make that at least more palatable and at times making it more reinforcing again.
And I'm going to say too that I think that there's an element of it as a parent, and Nancy, tell me if you feel this way too, where it's really hard to admit when you're a burnout, because it sounds, even in our own heads, like we're saying, I don't want to do the work.
Right.
But we do want to do the work. And I think it's hard for a parent to admit that that's where they're at. I think we usually wait way too long to say that we're at that, and it only comes out in a spurt of anger. Right? Because like it's the only way you can get it out of us is sort of the thing. And I just want to put out a thing to parents to say you shouldn't be ashamed of having burnout at all. And it doesn't make you a bad parent.
Right.
Caregiver burnout, first of all, is a very real thing, and in no way does it imply that you are lazy or don't care deeply about the person that you're taking care of. It really is a symbol that you need to take a step back and get your batteries charged so you can come back and plug back in. But I know it was hard for me on the days when I didn't feel it, and I was like, ugh, I don't know how I'm ever going to continue doing this. I didn't want to admit that. Do you feel that way, Nancy?
Yeah, you feel, first of all, I feel a little embarrassed because I feel like I should be grateful.
Right.
I should be grateful that my son's getting this therapy. So I feel a little bit like remorseful that I'm even thinking of being burnt out. Like all the kids that can't get therapy, and here's my son's getting it. And I should be grateful for that. So that's when I feel burnt out, I feel like, oh, you ungrateful,
Right. When in fact, everybody knows that you're grateful for it, and the burnout still needs to be treated.
Right.
About the anger thing, Vince, I know that once a month I had to fill out that, I don't know which form it is, where it would ask you questions about personal questions.
Right.
Like, I remember one of the questions was, how do you feel about the last article of clothing you purchased? And I remember at a certain point kind of yelling at Art, who was the person who was administrating, and I was like, why is this relevant? And poor Art, he sat me down and he said, let me show you something. And he showed me on the graph of my answers, and he said, we're checking to make sure that you're being honest with us. He said, this is a question that verifies whether your scores match up with if you're telling, and I was like, really? Is that what that does? And then I hated it less as a result of taking that time. But it was very passive aggressive of me that I didn't just say, this is an annoying question, and I don't know why I have to do it. I was like, what's happening with it? Why do you care so much? How is this relevant? I shouldn't have to answer. What does this have to do with autism? Like the police or something.
Right. But remember, we're taking care of the whole family, right?
Yeah.
So taking care of the family and the parents is equally important as taking care of the children, right? And that's what that assessment was for, was to make sure that we kind of have a heads up of burnout, or we have a heads up that parents might have some questions about therapy, or that they're not, they're really not, maybe they're disengaging from the treatment more passively. And that gives us a little bit of a heads up so that we can reach out and say, hey, what can we do to help you? What can we do to make this better? And one of the secrets is, guys, is the therapists and the clinicians, they burn out too.
Yeah.
So having that communication back and forth, I think, is revitalizing for the whole team, because everybody's now admitting it, right? Clinicians don't want to admit that. And as you both said, parents feel remorseful or ungrateful to admit it. And then the kids, right, they oftentimes, would rather go do something else. So by having us have that communication and actually having that discussion actually helps everybody, because it's the change that everybody might need.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So being honest about it, being upfront about it, and then as a team looking at how you can freshen things up, how you can shake things up, do things a little bit differently, make things fun. All of that's super important.
Yeah.
I love my dad, who was a very, practical person. And he was cautious about everything and practical. But he would even say, if you're not having fun, what's the point of the whole thing?
Right.
And I forgot that many times in therapy, that he was supposed to be having fun, that I was supposed to be having fun, because it didn't always feel that way.
No, of course not.
And this is another side part of it, that as I'm talking more and more to parents, Vince, I'm hearing that a lot of them don't understand that your therapy can be taken other places and should be taken other places, that you can go to a museum and do therapy at a museum. It doesn't have to always be in the home or in the center.
I had realized for the longest time that my child was able to go to restaurants with the therapist and have a meal with them, and that breaks it up and makes it fun for him to go to different places. And I did tell another parent told me when I'm like, oh, I hate having to bring him home at 7:30 and then feed him dinner. She's like, why don't you just have him do it at Card?
And work on the things that he needs to work on in a restaurant, because there's a bunch of skills that need to be worked on in real life in a restaurant. I think that sort of frees things up too. And is that what you mean by helping to freshen it up too, Vince?
Right, absolutely. Change location, change stimuli, change the way we're presenting things. Do it in a game form, do it in different ways. And the other thing, as I was thinking about it too, is the more we're able to talk about it, right, we start then avoiding some of that. You would mention passive aggressive. We start staying away from those unnecessary cancellations and loss of treatment because of the burnout, right? It's a lot easier just to cancel the parent meeting, cancel a clinic, cancel some sessions, and then the child's losing treatment, rather than what we're saying right now is change the location. Say, you know what? It's, he really wants to go to this, new park that's out there, but it's right during session time. Let's do it. Let's go work on play skills. Let's work on socialization skills. Let's work on compliance, work on language, work on generalization. So many different things we can work on in that change of environment. And sometimes it's good for everyone to have that discussion, because we all fall sometimes into routines and patterns. And with that in mind, for those clinicians that are watching and viewing our show today, also make sure that every time you're meeting with the family, we're talking about the gains, we're talking about the progress, we're talking about the successes, as well as the things that need to improve, right? Because one of the things I hear from families very often when they start talking about burnout, about meetings, is that it's a constant reminder of what their child cannot do.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Rather than the progress that they've made and how we're going to continue to make more progress.
Yeah.
And I think that balance is extremely important, because nobody comes in trying to put anyone, to make anyone feel like this, right? It's just talking about the programs, what needs to move and what we need to work on and so forth and so on. But if we don't talk about the success, we don't talk about the progress, we don't talk about the gains that they've made, then we burn out on hearing what they can't do.
I think that's a really important thing, especially for families that it's a longer haul.
Right.
Because I remember, when we started services at CARD, a family had told us that clinic was like the most important thing, and to never cancel a clinic, like crawl if you have to be at clinic. The only time not to come to clinic is like if the CDC has said you're contagious, and it really would have to be the CDC to not go. And that not just me, but that my husband as well needed to be there at the clinic. And I'm so glad that parent shared that with me, because I don't know that we would have taken it as seriously as we did. And I really feel like it made a difference for us. But every single time, the clinic was not easy. And every single time we left the clinic, we would go downstairs at the old CARD building, and we would get into the car. And I would shut the door, and I would sigh very heavily. And my husband would say, what's going on? And I would say, I just want to cry. And he would say, you do? And I would say, yes, I just want to cry, because it just reminds me how far behind we were. Every single time we did the same thing, like it was scripted, right? It didn't change the fact that the clinic really was helpful, and looking back was a large part of the success that we had, but I still had those feelings every single time, every single time. And I can't imagine, we did 5 years, you're telling me you're 12 years in, and to have that over and over again.
It's like you go, oh God, we have clinic today.
Right.
And you're just so burnt out on it, but it is so important, as you point out.
Well, and I want to point out, Nancy, you're somebody who goes to your clinic, and even it's 12 years later, and during that time you lost your husband, and you're still going there yourself. Right. It's hard, but you're still going, because it's worthwhile to go. But you still have those feelings, and it feels like, will this ever end? Is this the rest of my life? Right. And we need to talk about that, and have people know that they're not alone when feeling like that, and encourage them to share that with their team, that they're feeling that way.
Right. Absolutely, because it's our job as the clinicians to make those accommodations, right? And to make sure that we are showing the progress. We are showing, look, he's made all these gains, and the behaviors have really dropped, and he's gained this skill and that skill, and now he's generalizing this, he's emerging in these areas. And it's just as important to talk about that than it is the stuff that still needs to improve. And the clinicians need to know that if that's not how it's coming across.
Yeah, I feel like this is such an important conversation. We could talk about this forever. We're out of time, though. But Vince, we want you to share how there are a couple of different ways that people can see you. You're on, you're part of CARD, but you also have a private. How would you like to tell people if they want to get a hold of you?
If they need to get a hold of me, the best way is through email at v.redmond, REDMOND, just my last name, at centerforautism.com.
Okay. And feel free to reach out to Vince if you have other questions, or you can reach out with questions for Vince with us here. Yeah. Vince, thank you so much for the work that you do, and for sharing it with us here on the show.
Thank you for a very important topic, and shed a lot of light on it. Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Okay,
you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we've got Dr. Gregory Firn. He's the Chief Operating Officer at RoboKind, and I'm a big fan of RoboKind.
Okay.
I love every time I've gotten to meet Milo. If you watch any of the interviews that I've done with Milo, I'm sort of ridiculous because I start having a conversation with Milo and I lose track of the fact that Milo is a robot.
Right.
Like, you know, very quickly because he's so awesome. But we're going to get to meet some of his friends, I think, and we're going to get to talk with Dr. Firn about what RoboKind is up to. So stick with us.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when the child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. Matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about an allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning, we're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not...
Personality, we can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with... I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
It looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com, We're of course on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autism-live. And of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out. Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better, and you're going to see amazing progress.
And we're back, and as promised, we have Dr. Gregory Firn, who is the COO at RoboKind LLC. He's had 34 years of work in education combined with his passion for working with underrepresented groups and improving their educational opportunities. And so he leads and supports Robots for Autism and Robots for STEM to create and sustain life-changing impact.
Absolutely, and we welcome Dr. Firn to the show. We're so thrilled to have you here. You may or may not know that we're big fans of RoboKind and have had Milo on the show, I think, 3 times now.
Well, thank you. He's actually pretty jealous right now that he is not on, and you can see over my shoulder his twin sister Robin, and then he has a twin brother Jet that's back there as well. But they're looking over my shoulder, making sure that I don't say anything incorrect or I don't embarrass myself, because as you know, when they respond to things, they do it perfectly every time. I'm human, so I make mistakes.
I love that. Well, you're a pretty interesting guy because your background before RoboKind, you were a superintendent of schools. You've got a ginormous education background. Who better to be the COO at RoboKind, because these robots have more and more to do with school. But let's back up for a second and talk about why Robots for Autism and Milo in particular were created.
So, great question. Thank you, by the way. My mother loves all of those really nice accolades. She appreciates those. So thanks, Mom, for sending those in. Milo, I believe you know this, but for your listeners and those that are tuning in, Milo was designed to work with individuals with autism. So everything about him, in terms of his rate of speech, which is approximately 82% rather than 100% like what we do, his visual support to show on his chest plate, the video modeling, all of that was designed specifically to work with individuals with autism. So from its get-go, Richard Margolin, who designed and created Milo, was approached by Dr. Pamela Rollins at the University of Texas, Dallas, the Collier Center, and she's posited that individuals with autism would embrace and engage with a humanoid, facially expressive humanoid robot at a far greater percent than just with a human. And that, through several years, 3 years of clinical trials and development, really tested true. And it's not that Milo takes the place, because he doesn't replace humans. We know that generalizing to human interaction is our goal, and is certainly the target for us. Milo, because of his design, creates that level of engagement, a bridge, if you will, to help communicate as well as create coherence for individuals on the spectrum. So that's why Milo, and we've certainly proven that now over and over again over the past several years, both from a clinical setting, but also in the public schools, private practice, therapy clinics, and in hospitals. So we're very pleased with the effect that Milo creates.
Okay.
Do you want to ask the next one?
What was it about the state of how students on the spectrum were being educated that made you realize that this needed to be a change? There needed to be a change.
Well, I think the disappointment with the lack of progress in many cases. Why weren't students or individuals acquiring these skill sets faster, more effectively? And I think probably that was a key motivator. The other is how to do it efficiently and effectively. As you know, with robotic technology, especially as what Milo represents, is being able to repeat a lesson perfectly over and over again. And we know with neural processing that what is necessary is sometimes a lesson being repeated 10 to 20 to sometimes 30 times for that coherence to take place, where an individual actually has mastered the targeted behavior. Humanly, we can do that, but as you probably know, or I know firsthand, I can't repeat myself with the same gestures, the same way, in the same manner every time. And Milo creates that level of consistency through being predictive and also reliable and non-judgmental, which allows for, if you will, those lessons to be repeated perfectly that garner generalizing, which is really the key.
Plus, he's really cool. Let's not leave that part out. But here you are with this education background. What did you recognize were going to be the hurdles that had to be overcome working with students in the spectrum in a classroom? What did you identify for K through 12 that you could see?
Well, interestingly enough, it's not the students where the challenge lies. It really is with us, the adults. Educators are conservative in nature with respect to taking risk, albeit embracing innovation or technology. Special education may be a little bit more guarded. We know that overcoming that risk factor was absolutely critical for us. And so what we needed was success stories. We needed to have clients in the field that were not only using him and using the program, but also achieving the type of results we envisioned. So very important from my perspective as an educator to talk with other educators about the impact, the benefits, the reliability of the technology, the ease of use, the ease of implementation, and probably what has really become extremely important is the data. The fact that data is recorded and analyzed and reported back to the educator that allows them to make instructional decisions on moving forward, repeating, backing up, and whatever is necessary to meet the needs of the student. So I think it's been overcoming the reluctance that many educators have. And I'm very, very intentional about using the word reluctance rather than resistance. And that's from scars that I have proving that technology and innovation can be embraced and used. And so I think if that makes sense, it's not the students. The students are naturally curious, irrespective of being neurotypical or neurodiverse. They're curious about the technology, and so they'll embrace that. It was helping the adults overcome some of their inhibitions, some of their risk factors to embrace it, and that's exactly what we've been able to do, and that's why we've achieved the success that we have.
Where is Milo being used currently?
So Milo is in 35 states, 4 provinces across Canada, and in every English-speaking country in the world. I would tout and point people to the great state of South Carolina, even though we're a Texas-based company, and we have over 35 ISDs here in Texas that use Milo. But South Carolina took a very aggressive position, very proactive, coming from the state their state Department of Education, so much so that they started with 15 school districts, and we're now across the state. We have over 70 programs that are being used to meet the needs of students in their public schools, let alone in private therapy and in the home. So, as I mentioned, 35 states looking to expand. We work very, very hard and very thoroughly with state departments of education, also with government at many levels, because seeding the innovation is extremely important, but it's one thing that is a win, irrespective of political affiliation. Being able to provide an effective tool for educators, albeit public, private, charter, has been something that most policymakers at a state level have championed. So we're very, very pleased with that as well.
And for the parents and educators that are watching, what does it look like? Is Milo or one of his brothers or sisters in the classroom? And, tell us what it looks like.
So I will paint a picture of 1,000 words.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly. Milo is used differently in almost every implementation, but typically what you would see, if it's in a classroom setting, there would be a space that would be set aside that Milo and a facilitator and a student would interact with Milo. Milo comes, you are able to put earphones on. If the student has the sensory capacity to wear a headset, they can do that. Milo is also used in more of a pull-out setting where there may be a dedicated space somewhere else in a school or in a clinic where a Milo and a facilitator are working that way. Milo can also work in small groups. So if and I smile when I say this because one of the traditional pieces of furniture that's almost in every special ed classroom is the infamous kidney-shaped table.
Right.
But you can see Milo with that kidney-shaped table with 3 to 5 students that are interacting with Milo with a facilitator sitting on the other side. We also have whole group or whole class activities that Milo can do. So typically, Milo would be on a table. The student would be sitting across from Milo. That facilitator may be next to Milo, maybe next to the student, or could be behind Milo. And so that facilitator becomes critical because we never have Milo working alone with a student. There will always be a facilitator that will be providing some adult judgment on progressing through a lesson, maybe some redirecting, and sometimes just as a comfort to the student who's working with Milo. So hopefully that it kind of gives you a picture. It's really the creativity of the educator, albeit a special educator or a paraprofessional. It could be a specialist like an occupational therapist, speech language pathologist, physical therapist. It might be a BCBA or a BCA that is using Milo with a student. So it's almost anything imaginable is how Milo is being used.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it because I can see them in the background.
I know.
Is there any way, do we get to meet any of the new people? The new robots? And see, I automatically, can you tell us who's behind you at least?
So I can, and I will turn just very quickly and bring, so this is, whoops, there we go. This is Robin, and as you and many of your listeners know, children on the spectrum don't necessarily differentiate initially with gender or ethnicity, but it was very important to us to have robots or tools that work and look a lot like our students. So Robin, turning her head, so Robin has a ponytail. And so that's what makes her a little bit different. She does have a female voice, but in the autism program, Milo is Milo. So this is Milo as a female. I'm going to put her right here. And then we have the twin brother from a different mother, which is our dark-skinned robot. And again, what we've found, Milo works extremely well. So like in Texas here, we have a very large Hispanic population. And very important with the hue to have a darker-skinned robot. So we have this version of Milo. He too is Milo and works very effectively. We have found, especially in places not just like South Carolina, but the city of Philadelphia, our friends in Miami, it was very important to have a robot of color, which we do. And so that's the twin brother from a different mother and the twin sister. So Milo, in the female version, is being used. We beta tested her in South Carolina and received tremendous accolades because the young ladies, especially working with Milo, and their parent or their guardian really appreciated having her.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your sensitivity to the fact that children are going to want to respond to robots that resemble them.
Right.
I mean, come on, it's just a thing. So I appreciate you guys being sensitive to that. We're really out of time, but I just want to go visit your workshop and stay there forever. That's how I feel. But how can people find out more about RoboKind if they're like me and want more of this?
Literally, RoboKind.com. If they just reach out to us on the website, RoboKind, one word, .com, they can get up with any number of our folks here and any of their we love questions. Questions are our friends. So we love people reaching out to us and asking those questions. We also have certainly the ability to demonstrate and do some presentations virtually. So we've tried to use technology as again, that tool, that bridge that really helps us connect with individuals. We admire and appreciate so deeply our parents. And like you, I am touched weekly by stories from parents that tell us that there's breakthroughs that are occurring with their children, which really just warms our heart and reaffirms what we're doing.
Well, it's a terrific program, and we want to thank you for joining us today, Dr. Firn.
You're welcome. Thank you for allowing us. And again, I appreciate Milo allowing me to do the speaking today, but we love him doing the speaking as well. So thank you very much and appreciate what you do. Anytime, let us know how we can assist.
Okay, thank you.
Love that. Thank you so much. Always thrilled to have you on the show.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hang up. And then we're going to finish up the show here.
So we're out of time. But
we're really out of time.
Yeah. We're going to talk about tomorrow at all?
So on Monday, big show, great guests that we're going to have for you. Of course, I can't think of any of them right now.
Right.
But if you subscribe, you will get the viewing guide and you will know everybody who's going to be on next week. We're going to finish out the last couple of days of April with a big bang.
Okay.
So you're not going to want to miss that. But for those of you who are watching in the Los Angeles area, want to do a quick reminder that there are a lot of autism events here in Los Angeles tomorrow, and I'm sure that wherever you are, last weekend in April, big events. Get yourself to one, partake of what is there, see what you can learn. It helps to refresh your batteries.
Right.
All right. Thank you, guys, and we'll be back on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.